So let's talk a little bit about who's hiring, how many open positions, and what's going on, and where should you be focusing your energy. My name is Holly, and I have worked my entire 25 years with a lot of the tech employers. Let's talk about the market. What does the market tell us today? Are there open positions? Are people getting very flustered because of the inflations are coming? This kind of remind me of the trend that I was seeing back in 2008 of the huge recession where there's absolutely no job. I'm talking about zero job. I think even back then, Amazon was so small 12 years ago, they were still hiring and probably one of the few employer that does it. What I'm seeing here in the market and also working as a founder and career coach is that a lot of people are still coming to me for Amazon. I have a small percentage of folks who come to me who's interviewing at Google specifically and Meta Facebook that they're offering more and more project-based contracting role. So I'm seeing more and more companies such as Google have always had, they're famous for contracting, a 9-month contract. If they like you, they will convert you. If something happens with the budget or whatnot, and they will renew your contract, having you take a 3-month break and then come back. So I'm seeing a lot more of consulting opportunities specifically at a Google environment. Again, take everything that I'm sharing with you with a grain of salt. These data are based on my personal research and also my customer who are interviewing raw data from these employers. A lot of folks are also turning around, evaluating because we're in a recession. They want to be their own boss, self-employment, especially those who are already at the FAANG and make their millions or cash out their equity, whatever is it that they decided to do. They wanted to semi-retire or retire fully in front of the beach house. But what does that mean for you, job seeker? That means that it's leaving room for you with all of those full-time permanent position and not just contracting. So let's talk a little bit about who's hiring, how many open positions, and what's going on, and where should you be focusing your energy. So what I've done is I did a little search on Glassdoor specifically. It is showing me that Meta Facebook has 7,600 open positions right now as of today. Google has about 1,300 positions. And the number one employer that everyone is dying to know is Amazon. Just Seattle alone, the headquarters, the first original headquarters, Amazon has over 60,000 open positions. Here's the thing, because I work for all of these companies, I can tell you that Google is an organization that loves to continue building a pipeline, not that they have an open rec. Of course they have the money and funding, right? All of these FAANG employer does because they're FAANG. They have a lot of money and they make the money in ads. Advertising generate the most revenue for all of these FAANG companies, but they like to build pipeline, you see? So once the market is back on track or they're focusing on building new products or services, they will look at the pipeline because all the candidate pool is in their database, all right? So that's very similar how Google operate. Meta, Facebook generally don't like to waste their effort or energy to just build a pipeline for fun. They will, but they would focus on niche rec. But the one hot positions right now that I've seen with all of these 3 companies are technical program managers. Yes, there's thousands of open positions purely just on technical program managers. Of course, these employers have one thing in common. They need engineers to build products and services, yeah? So engineering, software engineer is very hot. It will always be hot. If you're a software engineer, don't worry about it. You will always have job opportunities. If you are a strong technical program manager, meaning that you don't have a problem with system design, object-oriented design or analysis or architecture, you will have a job, okay? I think a lot of the employer, rather than looking for leadership to go in, they're looking for C-level executive or a bunch of leaders, right? Why don't they look within their company to promote within? For me, it's just common sense. So rather, they're looking at individual contributor, IC, like a lot of you guys who's watching right now, so that you can help them continue building that momentum in the workforce. So again, over 60,000 position, Amazon, 1,300, Google, 7,600 Meta, Facebook. So you got to ask yourself, what is the right environment for you and who do you want to work for. The only reason why 90% of my customer are all interviewing at Amazon is because AWS, it's crazy. Between AWS, the cloud, everything is on the cloud, and also Amazon, the .com space. Summer is approaching, which means what? I'm not surprised if there's going to be a 4th of July sale. What does that tell you about the market? Look at Amazon very closely if you haven't already, okay? There's going to be something that's coming up, some launches that's happening, some new product that's on the shelf, which means they are going to have a lot more than 60,000 job openings. Let me go ahead and answer some Q&A. You mentioned in another video, we can hear you interviewing for senior program manager with Kindle, I think L6. Oh, Kindle. Kindle is my first baby. I love the stakeholder meaning hiring team and hiring managers. So I was the main senior full lifecycle recruiter for all of hardware and embedded system. I love it. I had a really good experiences, but everyone is very different. Kindle's bar is very high because they expect you to have some knowledge of the consumer electronics product. If you have never owned a Kindle before, if I were you, I would buy one and start playing around with it. They don't expect you to have every single thing relating to the tablet, but they do expect you to have some kind of knowledge and foundation of how the device operates, right? Put yourself as a hiring manager. That is the expectation from them. Apply for Alexa TPM role. Yeah, consumer electronic. I think, I've worked for Alexa, I work for Kindle, I work for Heartline, which is consumer retail. All of them are very, very different, even though the hiring bar they say is the same, but it is a little bit different. I think that when you're interviewing with consumer electronic, which is the actual devices, the bar is a little bit higher because you need to have so much knowledge, the technical exposure to that world, which is hardware, embedded, and also software, and not just software engineering, right? Like building the actual software product like the .com space. So that's a difference really between the two. How long does it usually take for Amazon to contact you after internal referral? It really depends on the recruiter. It really depends on what the person that the Amazonian does to your resume, okay? The right thing to do, the biggest tip I can tell you is when you ask someone at Amazon to refer you, simply just say, hey, by the way, what do you think about my resume? Ask for their opinion. I mean, not that they have an answer for you, but at least you get a sense. Second thing is, do you know the hiring manager? Can you forward this to the hiring manager? Because oftentimes professionals, you know how I feel about recruiters, not all of them are good, okay? Because they have a high volume. Yes, even though referral is a priority, but they get so many referral and not every referral make a hire, okay? It's very easy for someone to find out who the hiring manager is, okay? Your referrer, all that person had to do, take your resume and the rec, right? And go to the recruiter and say, hey, recruiter, can you look up and see who this hiring manager is? And yes, they will know exactly who the person is. It takes everybody literally 5 minutes, okay? You gotta work the system. Once did you prepare? Do you explicitly have to state the LP in the answer? No, 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 no. Never, 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 ever put the LP in your answer, ever, okay? I would love for all of you guys to click on my AWS hiring team interviews that I've done with a senior leader from Solution Architect and also a level 6, a woman in tech, right? Take a look at that because we talk so much about people trying so hard by throwing the LP in the mix of their answer, people cheating to look at a second monitor to get the interviewer can tell, okay? You see this eye contact? When you're on video, if you move really slow, you see what I just did? It looked like I'm moving screen really quickly. So they can tell if you guys are trying to cheat. Your eye should only be on the camera lens. So the bottom line is you need to create different stories and never mention the LP. Be real, be authentic, be yourself. If not, it would show up that you're trying too hard. Any tips for junior front-end engineer who got rejected by Amazon? Well, the one tip I will give you is you need to know where you have failed. I'm assuming scripting languages. When you say front-end, I'm assuming Python or JavaScript. I'm not sure what technology you are or why. You need to practice. Practice makes perfect before you reapply, okay? If you are in a tech position and you didn't meet the bar, don't re-interview for the same role. If you didn't pass a technical bar once, it's not going to change within 6 months, okay? So I would spend that time in really figuring out how. I don't recommend taking tech courses or tech interview courses because you can easily do a lot of that for free online, by the way. You don't need to pay for a coach for that, but you really have to work on behavioral part. The behavioral part is more important because if you can't code, no one can teach you how to code, right? No one can, if you re-interview again, as an example, how are you supposed to solve a problem when you've never done it before? So taking a course for tech doesn't really do any justice unless you have already been an engineer for a while. TPM role, you're allowed to reapply in 12 months later if you failed the first time. Well, the Google TPM or Google rule is if you fail an interview, generally there's a cool off period for 12 months or so. I think that is still the fact, it's true. But then again, if you would polish it up, if you do the networking skill, you don't have to wait for a year. Sometimes when you don't get the TPM role, it's not because you're not qualified. It's because there could be a better way for you to answer those interview questions, right? So I'm only saying that because in the VIP coaching, 99% of my members have failed the interview from 1 to 6 times, okay? And they re-interview, all of them do, and they're re-interviewing at like Amazon, okay? Or Google or Meta even, okay? So I don't agree that you have to have a cool-off period for 6 months. You could absolutely re-interview within a few months, but you have to be, there's got to be a justification. What has changed, right? What did you prep differently? What have you done differently? And then you're going to network with hiring authority that push you through to go to a loop, okay? Because you have re-interview already. Everyone's going to read your feedback. It's got to be different. And if you really take a moment to think back, you can pretty much figure out where or what area you didn't do well. I just got an offer from Google with a compensation above my expectation. Do I still negotiate anything or just accept? It's a much better than what I expected. What should I do? If you get a job offer from companies such as Meta, Facebook, and Google, those are the 2 highest paying companies in the world, okay? My tip to you is you always want to negotiate because the recruiters are not going to give you the best offer, okay? They're just not. If you plan on being with a company long term, I would simply just say, Mr. and Mrs. Recruiter, my goal is to be with Google long term, and I want to make sure that you're over here financially, myself and my family is taken care of. So I would love to see if I can get, XYZ more. I don't know, 10,000 more, 20,000 more or something. Okay, it's up to you. I'm not telling you what to do, but I just know how the game works.